Is there an area of your life where, so you're talking about vibrating, is there an area of your life where you're a giver rather than a taker? You know, do you feel like the more that you give your life,
my whole life,
that like things just like I talked about before, how things just happen for me, you know? And so like if I'm constantly, you know, not wearing myself so thin and into a spot where I'm people pleasing, but to a spot where I'm providing service and I'm giving, and then, you know, I start to feel a little bit better about myself. I'm not carry the world so heavy. I let things in rather than just, you know, meeting everything with resistance. Is there something in your life that keeps you on that balance level?
Well, we'll talk about me being a caretaker because I don't recall if we talked about this at Meltzer's meetup. The reason why I started going to Meltzer's meetup was because of what happened with my father. So in December of 2021, I had not heard from my father for 2 days. And again, I'm in Staten Island. He's in Manhattan. He's lived his whole life in Little Italy, in Chinatown, you know, about 20 minutes away from here. So I had not heard from him from 2 days. And I just intuitively, I knew something was wrong. So sure enough, I drove into the city, and thankfully I didn't find him dead, but I found him as bad as you could be without dying, right? Later came to find out that he had blood clots all over his body. He had suffered a heart attack. He had pneumonia, and he had suffered a stroke all at once. He's alive for a reason. So there was this process of trying to help him along from the time I had to rush him to the emergency in Presbyterian downtown. Then they transferred him to Cornell to the heart unit, and then eventually to Gouverneur, which is a rehab hospital that's right off the FDR, about 10 minutes from where his apartment actually is. So my parents are divorced. My parents were divorced when I was very, very young, and it was kind of like a messy situation. And my mother, for a really long time, resented my father. And then as this happened with my father, my mom was a presence in my life to help lift me up. She was coming to the apartment with me to clean. She was coming to the apartment with me to organize everything, to make sure everything was situated right by the time he came back. And it was a 6-month extensive process. She was there with me the Christmas season while he was uptown in Cornell, right? I had to spend a Christmas day there watching the NBA games while my father could barely talk to me, right? That takes a toll out of you. For 6 months, she was right then and there with me, traveling to Gouverneur Hospital, helping my father rehabilitate, helping him along the way. And then late August comes around, 2022, she gets COVID. We make nothing of it. 3 weeks later, she's doing light workouts in the first level, because we live in a 3-level townhome. So her room used to be downstairs. She's doing light exercises. She has a little trampoline, 5-pound weights. And all of a sudden, she feels a snap in the back of her neck, kind of where your the base of your brain, where your cerebellum is. Again, we make nothing of it. And then she's bedridden for 3 straight days, and she can literally not get out of bed. And she can't really lay down properly. So after 3 days, she's like, I can't do this. So you got to take me to the hospital. Eventually, we found out that she had a brain AVM. So anybody who's ever heard of that, it's basically an entanglement of vessels over here in that area of the brain. And for her, thankfully, it wasn't a full rupture. It was more of a leak than anything. But it leaked onto that area, and that's what caused the equilibrium issues, the balance issues, the fact that she couldn't get out of bed. So we were in Staten Island. We had to figure out a way, and thankfully a really close family friend was able to get her into Columbia Presbyterian all the way uptown, and she needed to have emergency brain surgery. So 9 months after my father, basically I found my father on the floor almost dead. My mom needed emergency brain surgery, and the surgery was a success. Coming out of the surgery, she had a pair of mini strokes, because when you're doing that surgery, right, that when you're operating on that area of the brain, it's remarkably sensitive. Right. So I tell people,
does the doctor expect that though?
Yes. Yes, it's more common than uncommon.
Right. Yeah.
So, but the surgery was a success, and the usual recovery time for Lo is, if you're in super tip-top shape, 18 months, more or less 3 to 4 years. So she's been home since October of 22. She's been out here and there a few times. doesn't really go out with me when I go like to the supermarket or anything. It's more of my grandma, me taking her around and doing what she needs to do, running errands and stuff. But my mom is okay now just to get up and down the steps, go to the laundry room, do laundry. She's okay to cook. She's good on her feet. She doesn't really need the cane anymore. She needed the cane at the beginning for balance, but then as you move along in the rehab process, when you're leaning to one side with the cane, it throws everything off. So she threw the cane away. My father I called it my father with the pimp cane. He didn't need the cane. My mom didn't need the cane. They don't like canes. They just want to be on their 2 feet, which I understand. So I've had to be a caretaker, right? Again, I walk a spiritual path. These things are needed for your growth, right? So I've seen things that you don't really want to see, unfortunately, but I can take that and I can spin that and I can use that experience to help other people. Because it's very uncommon to have somebody in my father's position, very uncommon to have somebody happen to that both your parents, especially in that short window. It was within a year of each other.
Yeah.
So, again, I've been kicked down a little bit, but just try to keep as positive of a frame of mind and mindset as I can. And I know that my experience, eventually ultimately where I want to get to, I'm going to have to open up about my life. And I think a lot of people will see that the things that I've experienced in my life will be able to help them and that they could use that.
Longshots, a podcast about your favorite underdogs.